Hi everyone, welcome to Little Wicket Railway. I'm Rob, and in this video we're talking about Donald Trump's favourite subject, tariffs.
I always say tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary. Because tariffs are going to make us rich as hell. It's going to bring our country's businesses back that left us.
Now, I expect most of you are aware that under President Trump's leadership, the United States has implemented a wide range of tariffs on goods imported from overseas. And in this video, we'll look at what tariffs are, how they work, and most importantly, how our hobby of model railways could be affected. And you might be thinking, hang on, I don't live in the United States. This doesn't affect me, but actually, it might impact you more than you think. So what exactly is a tariff? It's actually a pretty simple concept. When goods cross a national border, the country importing them can decide to charge a fee, either a fixed fee or a percentage of the value of the goods. For example, if someone in the United States is importing something from the United Kingdom that costs $100 and the government has set a tariff of 10%, let's say, then it will cost that person $110 in total, with the $10 going to the government. And tariffs can apply to specific materials, products or industries, or they can be blanket tariffs applied to everything from a particular country, regardless of what's being imported. So that's how tariffs work, but why do governments use them? Well, there are a few good reasons why governments might choose to put tariffs in place. First, and this is the most common one, it's to protect domestic industries. By making imported goods more expensive, tariffs give local manufacturers a better chance to compete. And this can lead to the creation of new jobs or the protection of existing ones in domestic production. Second, tariffs can be used as political tools in international trade negotiations, essentially as leverage in a global bargaining game. But tariffs also come with some downsides. They often lead to higher prices for consumers. That's because the extra cost tends to be passed on, either directly through the tariff or because the switch to domestic production comes at a higher cost. In some industries, there may be limited or no domestic alternatives. So if tariffs make imports prohibitively expensive and there's no local replacement, the supply simply dries up. Even if the supply isn't cut off entirely, tariffs often cause delays and shortages, especially for businesses that rely on a global supply chain. There's also the administrative burden. Checking and enforcing tariffs requires a lot of paperwork and customs control. And finally, there's the risk of retaliation. If country A places tariffs on goods from country B, then country B might strike back with tariffs of its own. This can quickly escalate into a trade war and hurt the global economy. And that's exactly what's been happening between the United States and China. It's been making headlines again recently, but really, this goes back to 2018 when the United States first imposed tariffs of 10% on a wide range of Chinese imports. That was increased to 25% in 2019. China retaliated with tariffs of between 5 and 25% on American goods. Then things settled down for a bit in 2020, with both sides agreeing to partially roll back tariffs in some areas. Not much changed for a while until 2025, when Trump ramped things up again. In early April, he raised tariffs on Chinese imports to 54%. This triggered a series of back and forth increases, and now we find ourselves in a situation where imports from the United States into China are facing tariffs of 125%, and imports from China into the United States are being hit with tariffs of 145%. Yes, you heard that right, 145%. So for example, an item that would normally cost $100 to import from China now costs $245, with $145 of those dollars going to the US government as a tariff. And these tariffs on Chinese goods came into force immediately, meaning businesses that rely on Chinese manufacturing have had no time to adjust. One of those industries that relies heavily on China for manufacturing is, you guessed it, model railways, or model railroads for our friends in the States. The impact has been dramatic. Several major American model railway brands have even collaborated on a video explaining how these tariffs are hurting their businesses and the hobby as a whole, and I'll put a link to that video up here. It's not political, it just explains the harsh economic realities these companies are facing. And in short, the new costs mean that they can't afford to import. Orders are being cancelled or put on hold. And it's not as simple as switching to US manufacturing. That would take time, the right factories simply don't exist, and the costs would be much higher. They could potentially move manufacturing to a country with lower tariffs like India, but that too is a slow process. And even then, there's a new 26% tariff coming into force on imports from India. So unless Trump backs down or issues exemptions for the model railway industry, the future's looking a bit bleak. I would expect some businesses to shut down entirely, and those that survive may have to dramatically increase prices, making a hobby that's already relatively expensive even less accessible. Now you might be wondering, could goods be shipped from China to another country first, like the United Kingdom, and then be sent to the United States to avoid the tariffs? Unfortunately, no. It's the country of origin that counts, not the route. Trying to avoid tariffs by disguising the source is considered customs fraud, and it's taken very seriously. And you might have also heard about the de minimis exemption. That was a rule that said any goods imported from China that were worth less than $800 didn't have to pay tariffs. This meant that lower value orders from places like Temu and Shein were previously exempt. Well, that exemption was eliminated on the 1st of May. Now even small value packages are subject to significant taxes. Temu alone had over 185 million active users in the United States last year, so this change is going to have a huge impact, not just on prices, but on customs processing and delays too. So how does all this affect us here in the United Kingdom or hobbyists in other countries? Well, a number of British model manufacturers rely on sales to the United States. Hornby's 2024 accounts show that just over 7% of their revenue came from the US, and they were hoping to grow that in 2025, especially after getting Airfix kits into more than 2,500 American stores. But if those Airfix kits are made in China, and I think it's likely they were, is this arrangement still viable? Meanwhile, Dapol, which manufactures most of its product in Wales, I believe, has already pulled out of the US market. They issued the following statement. Due to changes in US customs regulations, large delays are being experienced at the border, with some orders even being rejected. As a result of these new customs measures and the delays that they're creating, we've made the tough decision to suspend all orders to the USA for the foreseeable future. We apologise for the inconvenience this may cause, but it is simply not a viable situation for us here at Dapol. We hope that this is a temporary situation and look forward to being able to provide models to our friends in the States again in the future. So, as you can see, even companies based outside the United States and China are being affected. The global markets reacted pretty badly to the announcement of these tariffs, which led to Trump pausing the full implementation for most countries until July. But that pause didn't apply to China. Their tariffs came into force straight away. And here's another concern. If the Chinese factories that manufacture models for the US markets lose a significant portion of their business, what happens next? Do they close down or move away from making model trains altogether? And if so, what does that mean for the rest of us? What impact would that have on the availability and price of models here in the UK or in Europe? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, especially if you're in the United States. Are you starting to feel the effects of this already? I'm filming this on the 7th of May 2025, and things are changing pretty rapidly, so depending on when you're watching this, the situation may have already shifted. Even if you support tariffs in principle, I think most of us would agree that the scale and speed of these changes have been pretty disastrous. Do they actually help the American people, or is this just a political stunt by Donald Trump with ordinary people paying the price? A tariff of 145% is absurd and unsustainable. Trump may eventually be forced to back down, but how much damage will be done before we return to something resembling economic sanity? If you found this video interesting, then please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. A huge thank you to all the YouTube members and patrons for your support. It's very much appreciated. As I said, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I know people may have different views on this, and that's totally fine, but please just keep it polite. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching, and I will hopefully see you again soon.